All right, so there's a few things I like to do before we go home. I know. So this one's imbalances the glenoid humeral joint, but it also works with imbalances within the elbow as well. So for the glenoid humeral joint, that's this one here, that's the humerus. And this is the glenoid cavity. So this kind of form a capsule. And the shoulder joint moves around there. It's probably the most mobile joint in the body, this one. Like that's the most range joint. And it makes up one of the shoulder joints. Because you've got clavicle, this one, which is the acromioclavicle, and you've got the scapula that slides around. So all that moves, and then this moves as well, which makes it incredibly, so the girdle moves and then this moves. So it's this incredibly complex moving apparatus. And there's this socket, the ball has these things here called tubercles, and muscles attached to them. So you can see the blue attachments with the muscles around the tubercles. This is called the lesser tubercle, which is smaller. This one here is called the greater tubercle because it's bigger, rocket science. And then there's a groove between them. And that's the groove that the biceps tendon travels down. So the bicep, one which is, there's two parts to it. There's a short head and a long head. So the long head of the bicep has a tendon that comes up in here and touches back there somewhere. And then inserts onto. That's the origin, and that's the insertion. And then there's another one that has its origin. Yeah. So the bicep does this, but it also does this. So it does this. And sometimes this tendon doesn't sit properly in the groove. Sit properly in the groove, and you get, they call it a slip biceps tendon, and it creates shoulder problems. So you get pain and discomfort. And some of the time, you know, people try and flick it back in manually, like there's soft tissue manipulation techniques to try and flick it back in the groove. But if the muscles are reactive, so if the bicep muscles are reactive with other muscles, it's really good because you pop it in, but then it tends to flick back out again because the long head and the short head aren't lined up properly because the tension's not right, and it kind of pops the tendon back out. Does that make sense? So this reactive pattern gets rid of the misalignments in the muscles, which then allows the tendon to sit in the groove better. And so when you do flick it back in, it's likely to stay there if you do this reactive pattern. Also, this reactive pattern often relates a lot to elbow issues. When people have elbow issues, I always remember this client I had who kept coming back with its elbow problem, and I do reactive muscles on it, and it get better, and it'd be good for a few days or weeks, and then it'd go back again, which is unusual for reactives. And I go, what do you do with it? And he goes, I do 20 minutes of one-hand handstands a day. So he'd do this on one arm a day, balancing on the ground. I went, oh, I don't think it's designed for that. So often reactives are permanent unless you do really strenuous, crazy stuff with your body. So a lot of people who run marathons, you know, you'll fix up all their reactives. They'll go run a marathon, run 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers, whatever they do crazy in a marathon. Next time they come back after the marathon, they've got reactives everywhere because they've put themselves in a massive stress by running a ridiculous distance.
We can all feel absolutely guilt-free. Not achieving that personal goal is running a marathon.
Is that one of your goals?
On my list. Look at that. I might have been on this somewhere. But no, I just,
Well, now you got a reason not to do it. You can sit at home and watch Netflix. And watch other people run marathons. No, well, it's not necessarily going to make you healthier. Like, you'll definitely get fitter, but it might actually wear your body out quicker and shorten your lifespan doing stuff like that, and age you quicker. It's not necessarily like it's an extreme, effort that you should probably only do if you really have to. Not necessarily something you should do for health, because and if it's someone's hobby and they're passionate about it, great. But in most cases, those sort of extreme kind of physical endeavors don't really help anybody in their health. So, imbalances of the glenohumeral joint. So the following two reactive sets relate to misalignments in the glenohumeral joint and the shoulder, including pain, weakness, chronic shoulder pain, and frozen shoulder. So bicep, long head and short head, triceps and brachioradialis. This reactive pattern impacts on both the glenohumeral joint and the elbow. It affects how the bicipital tendon sits in the groove, which is a major shoulder concern. By balancing these reactives, it can address causal stress that tends to pull the bicipital tendon out of position. Also, this set works with elbow and is very good for helping rectify tennis elbow. So let's have a look at the biceps. They're part of the stomach. So we go to AMN, or muscle model, the muscle manual. So they're in the stomach one. So long head is page 30 and short head is page 31. So when we do the long head, we start in this position and we go here and we push the arm in this way. So it's like this and pushing the arm in this way. When we do the short head, it starts in this position and we test this bit down. If you do it like this, then you're going to engage the brachio. If you do it like this, then you engage the bicep. So that's more brachio. So brachio is like that. Short head's like that at 90 degrees. Brachio is like that, probably 120 degrees or something. And then short head's like that, 90 degrees. And then long head is 90 degrees like that and pushing in like this. So you're testing the feet, the humerus, not the forearm. So it's a shoulder movement. This is an elbow movement for a short head. Everyone, so long head, short head, brachio, and then we have the triceps. We've done the triceps before. We did them when we did the gates in number 3, PP3. So we'll just have a quick look at those again. So the triceps. So that again, those ones relate to the pancreas. And you've got 1, 2, 3 heads. And you got the insertion for all of them of the olecranium. So here's the olecranium process. And then you've got this one, and this one. Origin, origin, origin. 1, 2, 3. So tri has got 3 origins, 1 insertion. The olecranium. So with this one, we're pushing in this way. So when we do the reactive pattern for that, we do all of those muscle combinations. So I can do it off by heart because I've done it so many times. So many people have shoulder and elbow problems. So does anyone have like a problem here on the shoulder? Or does anyone have like an elbow issue? You have a shoulder one?
yeah.
And it's right there, so that's perfect. So again, you can go further with this by working with the tendon, because it's the tendon that's going to be inflamed And remember, it's the fascia sheath around the tendon that's going to be holding the inflammation. So we can do the reactive pattern, and then we could look at the tendon and the fascia connected to the tendon, which is what we looked at in the last course. Remember we did the tendons and fascia? Do you want to sit up, Mandy? It's your left one. So if I have a little feel of the shoulder, I can see if I can feel if there's an elevation. So just by feeling around, I can feel that her bicipital tendon is medial to the groove. So it's perched on the medial edge of that groove. So it's closer to the lesser trochanter, and further away than it should be from the greater trochanter, not trochanter, no, tuberosity. So when I come here, so you got this lump here, tubercle, that tubercle, got the right word finally, and I had to look at it to get the right word. And this tubercle, I can feel, instead of it sitting neatly in the groove, it's pulled over this way and perched a little bit on this edge. And so there's a little bit of a hollow here, and it's like raised here because it's come out of that groove and come more medially. So I just felt around and I felt the hollow here, and I felt it perched here. So there's a big jelly bit sort of poking out more on this side. Can you feel it? Yeah. So it goes in a bit here, and it's perched a little bit medially. So it's too hot. The tendon's like raised out of the groove. Well, when we do STF3, what I'll show you how to do is we kind of pull it back like this, push in, and then you just flick it back into the hollow like that. So that's like a soft tissue manipulation. That's actually so still not great. So it's not, and the problem is because of the reactive muscles and all the tension imbalances in the muscles, it doesn't often hold very well anyway. If you get it in, often it doesn't go in anyway because it's not the cause. It's trying to fix it mechanically, but it's not a causal problem. But once we balance the muscles, the biceps, the brachio, the triceps, then the tension changes and it's easier for it to get in. Does it feel a bit better? So is it sore still?
I don't get stuck.
Do you feel it's sticking at the moment?
No, no, no.
So I've actually put it back in. It'll probably, and is it something common that you
I've had frozen shoulders for 2 years.
Okay. So I might fix it just by doing the soft tissue, by flicking it back. But in order to do it properly, I have to feel which way I need to flick it. Is it perched here or is it perched here? And then if it was on this side, I'd pull it in here and then flick it that way. If it's on this side, I'd pull it in here and then flick it back that way. Because one's pushing it in from that side, one's pushing it in from that side. Does that make sense? So anyway, so looking at the reactive muscles. So this is the short head. So give it a hold. Don't push, hold. This is the long head. Just keep that arm there. Keep your arm there. And then hold. This is the brachio. Hold. And then this is the triceps. So when I'm doing this movement, I'm lengthening the muscle here. So that's the triceps. So that's the back of the arm. When I do this movement, I'm lengthening the brachio, which goes from here to here. When I do this movement, I'm lengthening the short head of the bicep. And when I do this movement, I'm lengthening the long head of the bicep. So they all seem to be locking. Hold, 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 hold. That one, not so good. Triceps is unlocking. So we can do the hold here. That's the lymphatic. And the hold. Anyone give me another reflex for that one? T1, and then hold. So T1 worked, good job. Breathing.
Press on page.
That's a small reflex, yeah? And then hold, and that's locking challenge, hold, excellent. So let's do, so I'll start with the long head, put that in as a reactor. Check the short head of the bicep, that's all good. Check the tricep, that's all good. Check brachio. So there's no reactivity with the long head. That's a reactor. Then I'll put the short head in. I'll check the long head. So the short head switching off the long head. I'll check the triceps, that's good. I'll check brachio, that's good. So short head turning off long head. So hold. So just relax. Okay, and then hold. So that's the correction. Hold. So short heads in circuit. Hold. So I've corrected the reactivity where the short head's the reactor and the long head's the reactive. And I'll do the triceps in the position. Hold. I'll do the long head. Short head, brachio. They're all good. And I'll do the brachio now. I'll do the long head. I'll do the triceps. So the brachio is turning off the triceps. And then I'll do the short head. So brachio is turning off the triceps. So brachio is here, spindle, spindle. Spindle, spindle. Spindle, spindle. Short head's here. That's the correction. Drop it out. Locking brachio back in. Check the short head. Go. Bob's your uncle. See how that feels. Smooth. Yeah. And so the other thing which we did in the last course was looking at the tendons and the fascia in relation to tendon. So if I go specific muscle, deep touch, that's tendon. So specific muscle, deep touch is tendon. And then I'll put the long head on because that's the long head where she's feeling the pain through the groove. And there's also a bursa there as well. So you have bursitis, which is the inflammation of the fascia around the bursa. So, and tendonitis, which is just inflammation of the tendon sheath, which is all fascia related. So hold, put the long head in. So because it's deep touch tendon, I'm actually stress testing the fact that the tendon itself of that muscle. If I did just if I didn't do tendon mode, I'd be just testing the muscle. Because it's tendon mode, it's zooming in on the tendon. So I'll just see what the indicator muscle is doing. Hold. Let's go on the second stage. So that might be because of the inflammation of the tendon. Hold. That's okay. And then I'm going to do the fascia. So I've got the tendon in for the long head, which is going through that groove where the pain is. I've released the second stage stress around the tendon. Now I'm going to do the fascia. And so the fascia is going to be in relation to the tendon because that's what we've got in the circuit. So I go fascia mode, unlock, connective tissue mode, specific muscle mode, sorry. Connective tissue mode, deep touch, ligament, water, and I do auric body, and I do etheric body, and I do chakra. So now I'm downloading chakra energy into the water. So I don't know how I scan like that anymore. It's getting more nebulous. But I got odds. It's like I scan them all at the same time. So when we're doing the chakra is sending information and energy into the etheric web. The etheric web is like, well, the etheric web extends into the fascia, and the fascia is like the physical manifestation of the etheric web, so it kind of balances the fascia. And then we'll come back, hold, check the fascia, and then we'll check the tendon mode, hold, and just see how that feels. Better again?
Yeah.
So that was just, looking at that particular bicipital tendon, which a lot of people have inflammation in. So that will really help with the reactive, so it won't be lined up nicely, won't be getting pulled around out of it anymore, and it's usually got inflammation in it, and so then the tendon, going into the tendon after, then doing the fascia is what's balancing the inflammation.
Does it get rid of the inflammation straight away?
It gives release straight away, generally. Whether it completely goes straight away or maybe you have to do it again, whatever. Yeah, and the thing is, like, sometimes the inflammation isn't just because of the mechanical stress. It could be, they could have like undiagnosed rheumatoid arthritis, and that's creating inflammation. They could have undiagnosed gout or something like that. And that's creating like a systemic inflammation through the body. So you might need to treat the cause of the gout to actually clear it at some point later, rather than just treat the actual tissue where it's inflamed. So if it comes back, usually there's other things that are affecting this that you might need to investigate. Often it can correct it, yeah. Often, like, I would preferentialize using the reactives over flicking it in.
Yeah.
So the flicking it in will come later when we do STF3, so we're not practicing that now. I'd always preferentialize using the reactives because that's usually what causes it to misalign. So the tendon to get pulled out because the muscles aren't synchronizing properly. So that's the bicipital tendon. Very useful, very common problem. And here, this is an external, internal rotator issue. Now, have people go, you got rotator cuff. I've got a rotator cuff issue. Oh, it's my rotator cuff. Go, oh, that sounds good. What's that? So this pattern relates to what is often called rotator cuff issues. With this reactive set, we are predominantly balancing the relationship between internal and external rotators. This can also relate to the shoulder being internally rotated, contributing to the shoulder being anterior presenting. So like that. So someone's like got this, like if they're standing and they got one like this and one like this. Did anyone see that where their hands weren't like lined up nicely? They were turned in. Some people's physical examinations. So normally the thumb's pointing forward, and the hands are by the side, more or less. But some people are like this, and that could be issues in the rotator cuffs. Did anyone notice that when they were assessing anybody? Also, again, shoulder issues, shoulder pain, this sort of reactivity. So with this one, we've got the infraspinatus, the subscapularis, teres minor, and supraspinatus. So they're like the major rotator, internal, external rotators. To a lesser extent, you've got like the teres major, that's internal rotator. You could always add that in. Just write teres major in there. You've got latissimus dorsi. They're both internal rotators. So there are other ones that could be involved, but to a lesser extent. So infraspinatus, subscapularis, teres minor, supraspinatus. Do you want to come up and I'll do those on you on that shoulder? Because if you've had frozen shoulder, probably all fit gummed up. So I'll just get you stand. So infraspinatus, teres subscapularis, teres minor, and then supraspinatus. So they're all right. When I do that one, I can feel it's a reactor, or I can feel it's hypertonic. So then when I'm in clinic and I'm trying to work quickly on people, I'll just put that one in as the reactor because I can feel it just through my sensitivity. So my sensitivity will help me to save time when I'm working on people to create quick solutions so I can get through more in a balance. There's so many things that could be wrong. When I'm testing people and doing different muscles, I take note of the ones that don't feel quite right. They're either a bit spongy or they're too tight. So I can kind of profile what's reactive and what's not reactive, what's a reactor, what's not a reactor. Just by going through those muscles, I can go, well, this is the most likely combination just from sensing the different changes in the muscles, just from years of doing it with people. And I don't expect you guys to do that. I'm just kind of giving you an idea where it can go when you've been practicing a while. So it just makes you open to try, experimenting and trying things and tuning into things. So I'll just do it how it's, so I'll just go infraspinatus. So that's the reactor, subscapularis, teres minor, and supraspinatus. So teres minor is the only reactive. So hold. Okay. And then the hold, that's the correction. Hold, that's a challenge. The next one's subscat. Hold. Teres minor, hold, supraspinatus, hold, infraspinatus. No problems with that one. And teres minor, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, subscapularis. So teres minor is a reactor, subscapularis is reactive. So I don't want to just relax. She's a bit tight, and I don't want to jam it when she's too tight. Otherwise, it'll, and with one like that, when you're going, there's not much play in that movement. You don't want to. And then that's teres minor, and then subscat was the reactor. If that's the correction. I can challenge it, just relax, and hold. So it challenged okay. And the next one was supraspinatus. So this one felt the most tension when I did it. And then infra, sub, teres minor. So that had two. So because it was taking twice as much energy as the other ones, I could feel it in the tone of the muscle when I tested it. So hold, might be easier to do it like that. Right. So that was which ones? Subscat and teres minor. So I'll do infra first. Hold correction, yeah, and then challenge, hold. Infra, subscat. See how that feels.
Better on this one. Yeah.
And that one was
Yeah,
that one. This
good
one. This is a good one. See, that one's a good one.
Thank you.
Excellent. So that's again really powerful for the shoulder. So if you did the bicep one and you did that one, you know, you can work, fix a lot of shoulder issues. And then the next one is looking at presenting shoulders. So so this is like anterior, posterior presenting shoulders. So this is when people have got like, you know, the shoulders are rolled in and they've got that sort of like heart protection stance. So they're trying to protect their heart, or you've got this sort of hypermilitary sort of stance where you've got shoulders back and chest pointing forward. And that one's very dangerous because it can, as you can see, it can lead to an elevated butt crack. So with this one, the muscles at the back are hypotonic, so they're often reactives, and the muscles at the front are reactors, so they've got too much tone here, so they're shortening, and the ones at the back are lengthening. So we're looking at these ones as potential reactives, and these ones as potential reactors. All right, so look at the muscle manual. So here we've got the middle trapezius. So when we've got the shoulders pulled in here, so we'd expect the middle trapezius to be hypotonic. So it has got reduced tone, so that's this one. We just did the lower before, that's the middle one. And the other one that affects the tone in here is the rhomboids. So that's the liver muscle. Rhomboids. So these are the rhomboids here. So again, they're attaching to the shoulder blade. And, you know, in that sort of military stance, you've got them hypertonic. In the heart protection stance, you've got them hypotonic. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the middle traps is that test. The rhomboids test is similar. We haven't done the rhomboids before, have we? So the rhomboids test is similar to the levator scapula. Looks similar, but you don't tilt the head, or so with the or drop the shoulder. So with the rhomboids, you just stand normally, but you keep the other arm away like this, and then you pull out like that. And then when you do the other side, it's like that. When you do the levator scapula, it's like that. It's levator scapula. This is irrelevant with levator scapula. You could do that if you wanted, but rhomboids, you're supposed to keep the other arm away and then just do that. That's the rhomboids. And then that's a teapot. Alrighty. So we've got pec minor, PM, and then so then the PMC is this one, and that's pulling in the arms in here. The PMS is this one, it's pulling in the arms in here as well. And then there's another little one called the pec minor, and that attaches to here. That's called the coracoid process. inserts, or sorry, that so that's the insertion, I think, and that's the origin on the ribs. So that just pulls the shoulder girdle in closer. And that's a very interesting one physiologically as well, because when that one's pulled in and tight, it actually shuts down the lymphatic return to the body. So remember when we talked about neurolymphatics and we talked about the lymphatic system, the lymphatic fluid drains out of the interstitial spaces, which is just the cell spaces in the body. So when the blood pumps, the capillaries leak fluid, and then that fluid collects in the cell spaces, and it drains into the lymphatic system, and it moves back through the lymphatic system into the circulatory system. Well, actually, all converges here and here, and it dumps back just in this spot here. And so it's called the thoracic duct, is where it dumps out of, and it dumps it into the subclavian vein, which is one of the veins returning to the heart, because under the clavicle. And when that pec minor is contracted, it tightens it up, and it reduces the capacity for the lymphatic fluid to move back in. So that's a health-related, physiological health-related muscle. So getting rid of a reactor in that one is really useful, because it allows your lymphatic system to clean out more effectively. So with this muscle, the body is, well, with the shoulder, we lift the shoulder forward off the table, and then you just push it back in to the table like that. So this is the start position, that's the end position. You just have to be careful that when you do it, the client just doesn't reactively put their shoulder down to brace it. So when you're testing it, make sure the shoulder, the elbow isn't on the table. Because if the elbow's on the table, then they just use the elbow to push back to stop the shoulder going back, rather than engage the muscle. Does that make sense? So they use it as a prop. So just make sure they're not propping up against the table to stop you pushing it. Just because people just hold it there, I'll do that. And they don't even think about it. But you're not testing that muscle anymore. So just making sure the shoulder's not on, the elbow's not on the table when you're pushing it back. So with the elevated, with the military stance, the pec minor, the PMC, and the PMS are potentially hypertonic or reactives, and then the rhomboids in the middle traps are potentially reactors. And in this one, it's the opposite. The PMC, the PMS, and the pec minor are potentially reactors, and the rhomboids and the middle traps are potentially reactives, because they've got less tone in them. Does that make any sense?